were contested in game number 1. Things already switching up, and it starts here with those drop spots.
Gotta love this drop spot here. 𝐒𝐈𝐿 and 𝐒𝐵 may have just earned their drop to themselves after taking down the last team that decided to contest them here in the early game. And as great as a game that 𝐒𝐵, 𝐒𝐈𝐿, and Rise had, they did end up unfortunately crossing paths with the hands of PeterBot in that early kind of end game situation that was starting to play out. But jumping on over to 𝐷𝐷𝐿, Xanda and Evan here, seems like they end up winning their drop as well. Full on 50-50 down to zipline. And yep, Xanda's pretty excited about that. He's gonna hit us a little emote to go ahead and celebrate the pickup and the return of Evan here. Let's put him back in the game.
Kind of 1-1. 1-1 if we're keeping record between G-Money, 𝐿, and Bryce
counting?
at this drop spot. I mean, I'm gonna be counting. I think the chat, we count. I think everybody's gonna be counting to see who, honestly, when it comes to tomorrow, if you're losing, let's just say like a 5-0, 40-0, something like that, it starts to put those doubts in your mind. Do I switch drop spots? Do I go away from something I practice? And this is one of those volatile spots in general. You can see it's just a straight 50-50 for that spot. Dive straight down in. First to pick up the loot. Good luck to you.
Yeah, and that is true, though. You know, 1-1 now, it does make you wonder, and it kind of just brings me back to Noah Plays, right? In his group stage, he took full advantage of, you know, putting his ego aside and then playing the best strategy that he believed was going to, you know, help him and his team succeed. Getting on into here and talk about Noah, I'm actually curious if things are still going contested at the Magic Mosses, but here's our game 1 winners, Bugha, Threats, and Rapid, their early game strategy. We all get to get little visuals here on, you know, again, what makes them succeed. It's that full drop spot to themselves, right? There's nothing like having a named POI to yourself, and then one that, of course, has so much potential in teams kind of in the vicinity that have to rotate through. But here we have the big 𝐒𝐕.
Big Cheese, Skittles, and Chimp. Hey, I feel like, what was it, chapter 4 maybe, when it was Chimp and Spade and duos. They were one of those duos that were so consistent the entire year, flying under the radar. And this is one of those teams. In terms of consistency, they have their moments, but when you look at the Div finals, they're always there. If you look at the groups, they performed. When you look at the finals of majors, they're there. And this is one of those teams to where when they're hot monster, they're probably one of the top 5 teams. You can see them qualifying for the global championship. But when they're not, and they have those inconsistencies, it not only sets down to our minds as the casters and the analysts, but it starts to set doubts into their minds as well. So let's see if they can, you know, continue day number 1. Doesn't necessarily have to be first place, but if they can continue to build that confidence, they're going to be somebody I'm looking at to be a threat for day 2.
Yeah, they're undoubtedly a top 10 team, right? Depending just on how things go for them. 𝐭𝐻 Analytics ran that, what was it, 10,000 game simulation, and they were one of the few teams up clearly towards the top that have a true percentage chance to go ahead and, you know, outperform, right, your average trio kind of in this lobby, which I find to be extremely interesting because they are vets, right, and they deserve that level of respect. Talking about respect, you have, of course, Re and his trio, and then you have PeterBot kind of going into a little bit of a toe-to-toe here against a 𝐿 right now. He's at a slight disadvantage having a low ground, but this is just baiting out a 𝐿, right? He's just asking him to peek. Meanwhile, Cold kind of playing side angles, looking for his own fishing for tags.
Yeah, and you can see not necessarily focused on having that mobility. They have the full POI, like you're saying. They know exactly where that's going to be sitting at, but a sneak attack on the other side from Donnie, Joji. They catch 𝐿𝐷 off guard, and even with the knock, they're just kind of making sure they get max damage with that pump. They're going to go ahead and get a couple of shots, use the water sprite, heal them up. And these are the kind of tricks that when you talk about saving it into a big moment like finals, this is it right here. That's not going to be like a ton of extra damage, like 500-600, but those could be the difference makers between being above and below Surge during one of the hardest parts of the game.
And that's the most important thing, getting those critical moments that are going to separate you from the pack. Very few and in between opportunities like that will come across it, but hey, we love ourselves a good ambush, especially when it's caught on broadcast. But look at this right here. We didn't really get to see too much of Polis in game 1. It seems like now he's looking to turn the script around as they have 4 eliminations. Let's see how this ends up playing out. Oh, 𝐒𝐷𝐿 just quick on the draw there. He's going to find himself a nice elimination onto 𝐒𝐕.
Seemed a little overzealous by himself on the other edge of that mountain. And depending on if they were kind of risky enough to get the reboot card early, it just kind of looks like they're hunkered down, gonna wait over there at the edge of the mountain on that reboot card and said, 𝐶𝐈𝐊𝐿, hey, if you guys want to get your trio back into the game, you're gonna have to go through us to do it. Otherwise, you guys can sit on the mountain for as long as you want. And you're kind of seeing a lot of that proactivity going down around the Nabi, Sphinx, Kanata, and Bolts moving up from Hopeful Heights, not too far away from their current drop spot here. But with a lot of the other teams around this edge of the map, just trying to push down towards the south to try to get their surge. These are the kind of situations you end up. It's not always a surge base.
Still, what a game for Sphinx, Kanata, and Bolts. Picking up all those early game eliminations, set them up in the conversation for a near top 10 overall performance. If they would have just gotten a small bit of placement points, they'd easily be up in the top 5, but all good. Sure, they won't be making that same mistake, and looks like they got their work cut out for them. They're going to end up opening the shots here first. I'm curious, do you think the confidence coming out of game 1 now is going to set them up to want to fight these teams a little bit more aggressively? Maybe look to initiate the full fight and finish it.
I do think it plays a huge role in terms of at least approaching the opportunity, because they're not going to put themselves in a bad situation. So if they don't get the green light to push, they're not going to push. But yes, I do think they're going to get more and more confident after that game number 1 to take space, to take the mountains, you know, the better surge spots that you see going down around the map. As we jump on board 𝐒𝐲𝐳 and 𝐒𝐲𝐳, not straying away from the strategy that they really developed through the last divisional cup. As 𝐶𝐈𝐿, they were able to get the reboot back. They challenged on the other side, but they run into a whole nother team. That's Noisy, that's 𝐶𝐈𝐿 and Tony, and they're trying to approach this fight from multiple directions. Damage still going in. 𝐒𝐈𝐿 just dropped down to just a sliver of HP, but he's trying to survive the best that he can, but the pressure is just too much. 2 more players able to continue to push him down and take all that space away. 𝐶𝐈𝐿 being relentless here for this situation, trying to approach different angles to close out the flexibility that they might feel they have on the other side.
Crazy to see that they haven't taken any damage, by the way, up until this moment. As I'm starting to speak about it, Tony punished, force on the back, but Noisy as well, but the shots fire back, and that's one thing pros do very, very well, is they won't give up just because they get a little exchange going. Meanwhile, 𝐶𝐈𝐿, the healthiest on the team, seals the deal here onto Cyrus's trio. Now, do keep in mind, this is coming off the back of a reboot, right? So Cyrus's team has had a very difficult game too, and even after jumping back in and almost having an opportunity after getting pushed out by Jax and Polis's team there, they still end up getting taken down, this time to the hands of Tony, whom, by the way, now officially put themselves up in the race for a top 3.
Even though you can't necessarily win the tournament today, it is going to be 12 games separated between day 1 and day 2. You want to go ahead and put yourself as close to the top of the leaderboard as possible, so that way you're not fighting against a huge point deficit as the tournament does continue. See 𝐒𝐿 just trying to consolidate a lot of the loot on top of the mountain. Going right back down. You see that he has double mobility in his inventory instead of a shotgun. The reason why is because when he does kind of loot up far away, he needed to be able to close that distance faster to make it back into his teammates, and obviously giving them options. But the zone continued to pull further and further towards the north. They're going to have to get out of that tower and start to rotate in before all the other teams beat him to the punch.
Yeah, and you can see those teams starting to encourage ever so closely there, as Cam and Bucky is kind of lurking about in the shadows there. Talk about the trio, we get to see it from their perspective. Little lit up here, but not completely out the fight just yet. Waiting for opportunity to kind of open up and avail itself. 𝐿𝐿 still watching from the tree next door.
This is kind of the result, the other edge of you seeing, you know, threats and Rapid and their surge towers outside of Seaport. And this is exactly the opportunities that they're looking for. A team like Bucky, Cam, and 𝐿𝐿 rotating on the low ground with a far pooled zone. And as soon as they peek out of these boxes, they're going to continue to fire down. And then you mentioned yourself, Poyo, 𝐒𝐿, and Acorn, who just did the exact same thing. Poyo just got there. That tower did not spawn there itself. He immediately invested the materials, trying to take advantage of everybody that still needs to rotate on this side of the zone overall.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to hold him out for quite some time. We'll see how that ends up playing out. And I'm sure, you know, they have the game awareness. They know more or less what team this is, right? And who they're picking a fight with right now. But 𝐒𝐔𝐈𝐿𝐴 and JoJo Fishy, once again, we get to tune in with them. They're deep in the storm right now. I wonder what their situation is like. They're moving towards the Outlaw Oasis, looking to kind of wrap around the map right now.
Yeah, I was thinking I was probably trying to hit that geyser and get up over the mountain, maybe throw the med mist smoke right before they take off. And this is just going to allow them to obviously save their kneecap or strength and then be able to kind of close the distance as fast as possible, because it does get you a little bit higher than a launch pad as well. But now we go on over to the north side of the map overall, just above Magic Moss's POY, 𝐒𝐷, Taki, and Vert. I said they're one of those teams when, especially when these north zones, they stay on this side of the map. They slowly but surely float around. They get their surge, and they kind of play a careful game overall. You see Vert just getting a little bit too close to enemy territory for his liking. He's just going to regroup with his teammates here.
Got to stay active right now. This game may have picked up the pace a lot faster than game number 1. However, we all know things are going to start to get real congested here soon. We start approaching the mid game right now. For Taki, 𝐒𝐷, and Vert, they've got what looks to be a couple different angles at play here. But Vert's on the low ground, taking all the risk of kind of securing what he could here for the meantime. Jumping in with Curve, Tyler, and Shadow right now. Underneath the base of Visual, Braids, and Aminish.
Just a quick little chop, trying to get them to shoot back, expose themselves any way that they can. And you can see they have like a ton of ammo. They can fire off, be in this position for as long as they want, but as the zone continues to rotate in this direction, you're going to soon find out how congested it actually is. And you're seeing
like
Shadows just in...
out.
Yeah, exactly. And Shadow's kind of doing the same thing in the bush on the other side by himself.
I like the thought process behind it. They're like, hey, yeah, we could chop him and force him to overbuild. Let's see if we can, you know, just kind of fish him out. Hey, come down, fix that structure. Right? Give us some fresh balls to spray for a second there. You got to respect the attempt. Meanwhile, 𝐶 Polar, just a little update here. Playing for the islands, trying to get a hold of that medallion here that, of course, the boss will end up spawning in.
225 above the damage threshold. Because of that, they're able to kind of take some time away from making it a focal point. Try to approach the boss at the top. It does drop a Chug Jug, so that's going to be helpful. And then the medallion that you see some teams take, some teams do leave it behind. And since the zone is pulling all the way from the eastern side of the map to the west now, that's going to give them a little bit of opportunities here for Surge, but it depends on how proactive the other teams were at in order to rotate first.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anyone nearby, so I'll have a pretty decent time here, surely. Unfortunately, 𝐷K taking that unnecessary damage there, really setting him back.
Yeah, it's really going to be on 𝐶 to get a lot of that Surge. He's facing the front side of the zone. Going to see how it plays out for them. Have they been able to accumulate enough? As we got another north zone here in this game, back-to-back here on the day so far. And you're seeing some teams faring very, very well for that Storm Surge early on. 365 above for Boken, 20, and Liam. Just waiting on the edge, seeing where the next zone appears in the next couple of seconds. And if it does pull far, I want to see them rotate quick. Be one of the first teams at the end. Brutal Boxcars is now at the edge of that next zone. So if you position yourself on the south side, you're going to be battling against that mountain range at the other edge. So you got to be very, very careful. And you got to keep it in the back of your head, Monster, because the zone does continue to pull that way for the rest of the game. It is going to be a roller coaster of emotions for a lot of these trios.
Yeah, and they're recognizing they got to make a quick move here. They don't want to be caught between the teams setting up early and, of course, the one that they were fighting on the edge of zone. Even opting to go ahead and leave the water sprite behind. So they're just like, hey, you know what? There's things out of charges. We can't even stay here to get full health. Like, we just got to go. Really showing you how important it is to get positioning on the map. Look at this. It's not all sunshine and rainbows for some teams. They are in a struggle to maintain consistency here. And they are well below the damage. Cirque and crew kind of seeing what's happening here. I was going to say, they'd be wrong to not take advantage of a team right now who's sitting on those splashes, and in they go. Definitely have kind of read the field correctly, if you will.
Best case scenario, because I do believe they were attempting to get Surge, but with a lot of teams having already rotated out of this position, they weren't able to find enough, put them below the threshold, and they kind of had to push the first team that they saw and know exactly how that happened. As we jump on board PeterBot, Cold, Ritual, not as aggressive as they typically are. A little bit of a different change here. They're focusing on just mainly getting that Surge, because if you look back to Major 1, some of the games where they did the poorest in terms of getting the points, which made it that narrow of a loss for them getting second place, it was because they were down on Surge. They were forced to fights they didn't necessarily want to take, and it put them in a bad spot. Now they're just trying to take more control over their destiny. PeterBot emerging as the IGL for this team, and so far it's working out for them here in game 1 and 2.
Yeah, you can tell it's very much intentional, right? They've been kind of trailing these trios here inside the storm right now, not looking to overcommit, but instead, of course, play to their advantage right now for damage. Mafia Haze and enough, though, find themselves below the Surge and dead center zone, so it's great, but it's bad at the same time. They're gonna have to be forced to take this fight. It's up against, again, a team we've been keeping a lot of attention towards. 𝐒𝐷 and 𝐒𝐷𝐣𝐴 here, of course, and now the Surge is active, though, Jacob, so there's no time to waste here for this trio.
Yeah, and it does seem they're just trying to jump back. 𝐶raze, aka Prom, entered the mix on the other side. That's a whole different team. And Haze, while he's healing up, he's trusting his teammates to try to get that damage. 122 below. The men miss smoke is a must at this time as they continue to fire shots across. That's Donnie and Joji that now entering the mix, but Storm Surge active every 7 seconds. 25 damage gets taken off, and they're falling further and further below, from 122 to 129, now to 149 damage below the threshold. For now, they're hoping that they have enough resources to out-heal it, but even if they do, I don't agree with that plan.
Yeah, you know, it's just one of those things where they kind of went for it. They recognized, wait a second, this team's kind of nasty with it, and they backed themselves off for the full heal to reset here, but they need to get in there. They're running out of moments. They're running out of time here now, as they're only 63 below. They fish for a little bit of damage, enough falls down, and that's going to be a huge 100 tag, but Haze, unfortunately, will be forced back once again. And then things update here. And he is still below, even after all that. And in the process, he's lost a couple of his teammates here.
It's almost like a heartbreaking situation. Two teammates sacrificed themselves trying to get damage. You saw it for a moment, 39 above, and instantly went over 100 below. 6 zone here, Monster. This needs to go down to about 54 players before Storm Surge deactivates. And now we're in the 7th zone. It needs to go down to 42 players. That is insane.
Yeah, it's very clear that there are a lot of players alive right now in this mid game here, but look at what's happening now. We're starting to take shape. No Kanata on this trio right now, so Bolts and Sphinx clearly have had a much different kind of turn of events here. Let's not forget, they struggled to earn placement points last time. It's going to be even harder to do so now with a man down, but hey, at least Kanata gets to sit back and be kind of the coach in the ear for the trio. Meanwhile, Cam finally gets traded off here. PeterBot's had enough of kind of tailing behind Team Bucky. They end up full collapsing here now. And that's how they find the full team wipe. And now kind of poised up to rotate to the new zone.
Yeah, similar rotation, but you see 200 below. Sphinx is down. It does look like he is going to try to get a revive. He has about the timer at the bottom right, 48 seconds before Storm Surge activates and they start to take damage. So it's a now or never opportunity for them. But you're seeing just moments ago, they were even further below that threshold before Bolts was able to find that key elimination. And with the zone moving, it's going to get exponentially harder for Bolts and Sphinx to find the damage that they need.
Kind of looking like a repeat of the last game. Another Magic Mosses Fortnite-esque zone finish right now. 𝐒𝐷𝐿, 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿, and Acorn, another high ground play coming out of zone 7. This time a lot different. 𝐒𝐷𝐿 actually picks up a refresh, but no, couldn't jump down as there was a player already there. It looked like 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 might have been the one to go ahead and pick up the loot there. But at least they're finding their elims right now. They're trying to get situated. These elims picking up themselves HP-wise as they're getting the siphon granted to them. But you saw there, no minis, no big shields. Very desperate situation overall, even for a team on height right now. Threats, Rapid, and Bugha have the zone to themselves now. They'll be one of the first to make this rotate. Ritual, PeterBot, and 𝐂𝐷𝐿 have gone for it, though. Sizing up high ground as well. This is starting to get exciting.
Yeah, and they're on the front side of the zone as well. Acorn, Pollo, 𝐒𝐷𝐿, they have a sense of being able to take the high ground. It's all about who plays this one right, as it does open up. Storm Surge activating on some of these teams that are down below. It's not enough being in the chaos that is the low ground, just having to fight with Storm Surge, dealing damage as Pollo finds an opportunity, gets the knock onto 20. Whether they're down or Surge or not, that's one less teammate that you have to rely on. And they drop down for the loot overall. Broken 20, both of them go down. That full trio is out. It's a sacrifice for Pollo, Acorn, 𝐒𝐷𝐿, giving up the high ground to try to refresh their materials.
Yeah, this is a tough spot to be in, right? Like, you got to make the rotate. You don't have the mask to hold the height, but then you're like, where's that body? Like, we just got that elim. Where is the loot? And it looks like they're not going to be able to actually secure it here now. And of course, PeterBot, Ritual, and 𝐂𝐷𝐿 know better than to leave up this free terrain here. They're clearing the landscape, and now they have all eyes on the entire field. Pollo, he's going to fall there to the hands of Sam on the rotate right now, and PeterBot is just starting to get cooking here. This is looking like it's going to be a pretty big game for this team up top, but hold up, 𝐒𝐷𝐿 is still down low, getting active right now.
Yeah, just a crevice, the small side of the zone, but they get pre-pieced on, taken down. That's 𝐒𝐷𝐿. Now it's Acorn stuck behind. He gets taken down as well. 2 names checked off the list, and the Major 1 champions out of the game early here for game number 2. Not even half of the placement points have been garnered throughout that run as threats, Rapid, Bugha. Those are game 1 Victory Royale winners, and they're poised right now to have a great position, but the battle for high ground breaks out. 𝐴𝐷𝐿, Visuals, Braves, they're ready to take the challenge. PeterBot, 𝐂𝐷𝐿, Ritual. They do a good job of defending once, but how long can they defend this with only 14 builds left, especially with a big shot being fired? Visuals, Braves, 𝐴𝐷𝐿, they do not use that as a chance to try to go and break into to get the elimination. They're just going to back down. They have enough materials. If they play this one perfect, they could retake high ground in a few moments.
One of those situations where high ground kind of puffs out their chest and you're not sure if you can call the bluff or not. High ground does not have the mats, but they don't have that information. They don't know. So they make the safety call to go down. Meanwhile, 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿, and 𝐒𝐷𝐿 have not left the low ground. They have been battling their way through the front side this entire time, and they're trying to find themselves another big refresh here as well. And you can just see such a different strategy at play here from the 2 teams on your screen.
Yeah, one of them's just taking all the space on the low ground, even if it means going outside of the storm. And as soon as they get there, they know that a fight is around any one of these corners, and they prepare for it. 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 finally figured out a way to catch up above. They have not looked down at that opportunity, just pressuring everybody on the front side of the zone. At the bare minimum, they're just trying to drop them into each other's hands. And now we're going open over land right now. There's a bridge, and there's a whole crevice underneath teams are trying to dive into.
𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 just took down Rito, and he finds himself still somehow below the surge, and it actually turns on.
Oh, no.
I can't believe it's active in zone 10 right now. This is incredible stuff. At least it turns off for a second, but it already did its work. It did its damage. Take a look at what happened up top, though. PeterBot tries to get active. He had to because he didn't have the mats, and he's found himself down to the hands of threats, but the payback is good for Ritual and 𝐂𝐷𝐿. Once again, running it up here, finding themselves in this end game, earning their trio more and more points.
Hey, Kelly said it. Vivid said it. It's not necessarily be about the star players on the team. Sometimes it's about the support, and Ritual is doing his job right. He has 𝐂𝐷𝐿 by his side, Curly Cooper down below. A little bit of chaos, trying to force the break out of the wall, taking some damage, but it's worth the sacrifice. But now he's just cut off. Curb on the other side tries to break his way in, and the teamwork makes the dream work. Curb out of nowhere gets the elimination onto Curb, keeping them moving. At this side of the zone, this is where they have space. This is where it's going to open up.
And it couldn't have gone better right there. He got the siphon, but unfortunately it wasn't enough help to keep him in the game. He's going to end up getting dropped by a huge shotgun shot. But look at what's unfolding here. Cold and Ritual are continuing to make chaos unfold here on the field. Colt jumps down to get these very important mats here. And Ritual finds another one as well. What is going on? Normally, the conversation is so different, but Ritual is in peak form here. On the low ground, it's a 2v2 now. Who would have thought we'd be casting some duos?
Visuals and Braids, a long-time duo, now here ready to try to take game number 1, but they're going against Cold, they're going against Ritual. 2 different mythic weapons in the inventory of Cold. The only blessing that they do have from down below is the lack of resources. When he drops down to the backside of the zone, Cold lands a good shot, opening up that opportunity. Ritual just trying to keep pace up above. There goes Visuals, he's down. There goes Braids as well. Cold and Ritual pull off the clutch to keep them alive in game 1 and take it by storm.
And it wasn't just the first one, it was the second as well. The second time now, Ritual and Cold find themselves saying, you know what, PeterBot, you did a lot for us all year long. Give us a little moment to shine here. And they are doing exactly what we expect a top-tier team to do, and that is perform when it matters. But a game 2 victory in the books here is huge. And look at how they utilize PeterBot. They say, hey, just send yourself out there, get loose on the field, create chaos for us, and then they capitalize from height.
Yeah, with the mythic drum gun up above, they're just trying to put pressure, make sure nobody can survive, even if they get the eliminations or not. And there goes Cold, opening up it from the flank, getting that first shot, to just leading the charge on the other side, taking them both down. Ritual, Cold, and PeterBot. Game number 2, they pull off a big win and rise up that leaderboard. Zeke, what do you think of that action?